At the start of the episode, he says that reincarnation is the same as betting your life on the spinning wheel of fate. You could return as a dog, a cat, or even a crushed cockroach. Becoming human depends entirely on your luck. The wheel of life spins rapidly and finally stops on a human. Seeing this, he feels relieved, thinking his luck is still on his side. He checks the reincarnation option and is thrown into one of his own poorly written novels, leaving him stunned as he wonders what this is supposed to be. The system tells him his name is Hansai, an F-rank beast tamer with a short temper and a deep interest in black magic. He's just a normal grade character with abilities like these. Damn it! He realizes this is a minor side villain from his novel who only exists to act as a stepping stone for the main character. Why did he have to end up in this body? It only has a useless taming ability and nothing else. Some people walk in, asking, "Who is this pig that's screaming here?" Hearing their voices, he looks around and realizes they're all dark magicians. What kind of situation is this? His memory slowly returns. Hansu had come here to register with the Dark Magicians Association and to demonstrate some practical skills. One of the Dark Magicians mentions that he recently found this guy outside, that he wanted to learn dark magic, so he brought him here to speak with his commander. Another magician asks if he checked the boy's initiation or where he came from. What did you say? Edel Academy. Is he really from Edel Academy? Then he might be quite useful. All right, kid, follow me. Hansu, nervous, keeps muttering, "Yes, yes." The dark magician asks if he knows how to join their dark association. Hansu nods along, pretending he understands. Inside, he panics, because joining means drawing an array with his own blood and swearing an oath to darkness. That's where everything starts going horribly wrong. The Dark Association will create chaos in society, kill countless civilians, and eventually attack Edel Academy, where the main character's parents will die. After that, the protagonist will lose control and begin slaughtering the entire Dark Association. And when the Academy discovers that he also uses dark magic, one day he'll kill him too. That's exactly how it happened in the story. The system announces synchronization progress with Hansai's body at 10%, then 70, 80, 90. Suddenly, an error appears and a random quest is issued. He must not become a dark mage and must escape from here. Hearing this shocks him. How was he supposed to escape in this situation? Suddenly, the entire cavern begins to shake. The dark magician is startled and says the sound is coming from the basement. Something must have happened down there. He turns to Hansu and warns him that he's going to check the basement, and if he dares to move from this spot, he'll come back and kill him.
Hansu says, "Yes, sir." The moment the dark mage stepped away, Hansu started running, thinking that if he didn't escape now, he would never make it out alive. He needed to get out as fast as possible. The best was in the opposite direction, so there had to be a door somewhere here. But with his weak body, he couldn't run far. Then he spotted a door wrapped entirely in chains. Seeing it, he wondered if this was the way out. Light was even leaking through the gaps. Two dark mages arrived, asking if he had seen a child. "Oh, are you talking about the same kid you were taking to the basement?" Yes, the one from Edel Academy. Now that I think about it, he might be a spy. After entering our camp, he suddenly disappeared." "What? Are you saying he vanished?" "Hurry and find him or we'll have a serious problem." The scene shifts. As soon as they leave, Hansu quickly tries to open the door, but it doesn't budge even a little. He grows frustrated, thinking how his situation keeps getting worse and how useless he is. He has plenty of mana, but can't use it. Then he remembers the mana circulation method he once wrote for his main character. Would it work in this body? He guides the mana through the channels, slowly collecting it in his hands. As he gathers it from his dantian and focuses it into one point, he pours all the mana onto the chains. Exhaustion hits him hard. Still, he mutters that he managed to get inside the gate and might finally escape. But someone was approaching behind him, their eyes incredibly terrifying. He turns around in shock and asks what a reptile is doing here in this dead end. It's just a baby dragon, and it curls around his legs. Hansu panics, saying he can't take a baby dragon out of here. "Stay away from me," he begs. The dragon begins to cry softly, as if about to scream. Hansu quickly covers its mouth, whispering for it not to cry or they'll both get caught. He He can't take responsibility for it right now, so if it wants to stay with him, it must not make a sound. The system announces that his beast-taming proficiency is increasing. This startles him. Has his beast-taming proficiency really risen? He checks the ability window and sees he can now form a contract with the dragon. But how is he supposed to form a contract when there isn't even an accept button? He never wrote anything like this in his novel. If he doesn't know the method, how is he supposed to tame his first beast? Then he remembers his friend used to pet his beast so it would obey him. He tries the same, patting the dragon and begging for it to work. The system declares he has successfully tamed his beast. The little dragon begins to glow brightly. Has it really worked? He decides to test a command. He orders the baby dragon to break all the chains. The dragon dashes forward and attacks the chains until they snap apart. Hansu watches in awe, praising the baby dragon for doing such an amazing job. But then, he forgot something. The loud noise from the chains must have alerted the black magicians, and now they were heading straight toward them. The situation worsens. They need to escape immediately. If the black magicians catch them, it'll create a massive problem. Then, it hits him. During his admission to Edel Academy, they were taught a defensive magician skill, smoke bomb. If he uses it now, he might survive. But he has never used magic before. No, he tells himself, he must have confidence. If he can restart his mana channels, he can cast a spell. The dark magicians had already arrived, but before they could act, Hansu attacked them with the smoke bomb, leaving them unable to see anything for a while. Overjoyed, he prepares to run and declares his trick worked. Now he just needs to open the door and escape.
Hansu was called mid-escape as a dark magician's spell wrapped around his body, holding him completely still. The mage taunted him, asking where he thought he was running to, and whether he really believed escaping would be that easy. Hansu kept struggling, dragging himself across the ground while gasping that he couldn't even breathe anymore, and wondering if everything would end right here. The dark magician told him that if he gave up now, he would grant him a painless death. Hansu broke down, crying as he accepted defeat. It felt like everything had ended. He would die here after dreaming he could accomplish something in this world, yet this body was too weak to do anything. Against these black magicians, he didn't even have a single spell he could cast. Then he noticed the baby dragon approaching him. Apologizing, he told the little creature his taming ability wasn't good enough and he couldn't help it. Still, he wanted to help it escape one last time. But the baby dragon refused and instead unleashed a massive flame using its mana, turning all the black magicians into ash as they screamed in agony. The scene shifted back to Hansu, who stared in shock, asking if he was finally free and truly saved. The baby dragon approached him, and he admitted he felt extremely hot, but also relieved knowing the dragon had protected him. The dragon leapt onto him, and he gently petted it, amazed at how incredible it was. "You're awesome," he said, and suggested they leave the place together. The scene then shifted to the desert, where Hansu had been walking for hours, complaining that 2 or 3 hours had passed and he still couldn't find any path or village. All he could see was endless sand. The baby dragon was also in terrible condition. Then Hansu spotted a carriage in the distance. Seeing it, he wondered if this was finally a way out. He called out, asking the carriage driver if he could help them and give them a ride. The man asked whether he had money. Hansu quickly said yes and pulled a card from his pocket.
Hansu answered that yes, he had money, and asked if the card would work. In his mind, he remembered that Edel Academy had given every student a card with unlimited funds for when they traveled outside, so now he could finally use it. The coachman said it would work and told him to get into the carriage, asking where he wanted to go. Hansu lifted the baby dragon inside and thought about how the Black Magic Association would be searching everywhere for him. If any information leaked, they would definitely kill him. As for his family, that wasn't the place he could return to either. The only place left for him was Edel Academy, the one place he could rely on. He said they needed to go to Edel Academy. The coachman told him to fasten his belt, since their next stop was Edel Academy. The scene shifted to an Edel Academy professor who was admiring how wonderful the day was. She loved going to the academy, surrounded by shining white armor and luxurious chandeliers. Everything was so precious, and she adored precious things. She looked over the students, finding them disciplined and cute like little angels. But then she noticed a boy arriving at the academy. The scene shifted to Hansu arriving in a rickety bull cart, shocking everyone around him. Hansu lowered his head, dusting himself off while complaining how filthy the carriage was. The professor was stunned, wondering whether such a poor boy could really study at Edel Academy. If this trash arrived by bull cart at the beginning of the semester, what would happen to the academy's reputation? But looking at him more closely, she thought she recognized him. Wasn't this Hansao, the boy who couldn't even control his magic channels? Hansu slowly lifted his eyes and realized she must be a professor from Edel Academy. Approaching her, he apologized for being a little late. Hearing this, she remembered her friend talking about him. He wasn't anything special, just a useless so-called genius who couldn't control his mana channels. There had even been rumors during the first semester that he was connected to black magicians and working like their puppet. He might even be a traitor to the academy, which is why all the teachers kept an eye on him. She scolded him, saying he wasn't a little late, but extremely late, and told him to hurry to his class. Hansu smiled gratefully, promising that from tomorrow he would definitely arrive on time. The professor blinked, surprised. He hadn't responded like her friend described. Instead of giving an attitude, he apologized. His atmosphere felt different in the second semester. The scene shifted to the classroom, where all the students were talking about him. They thought he had completely failed, yet somehow he was here again. One guessed he must be the son of a rich family who had bribed the teachers to let him pass into the second semester. Another agreed, saying he couldn't keep buying his way through every semester. Eventually things wouldn't work out for him, and then they would see what became of him.
Hansu heard everything the students were saying, and thought to himself that these idiots could at least speak a little quieter. Still, they weren't wrong. He wouldn't survive long in this novel world unless his abilities improved. If he wanted to stay alive in semester 2 and keep moving forward, he needed to become much stronger, because there were plenty of people who looked at him with hostility and could kill him at any moment. To advance each semester required talent and ability. If he graduated, he could earn money anywhere just by showing his Edel Academy degree. His family was wealthy, but they had abandoned him long ago. The classroom door opened, and all the students stood to greet the teacher with a good morning. The professor entered, returning their greeting. Hansu recognized him instantly as Professor Jia Yan. Why was he here? Was he the semester 2 instructor? Seeing his overpowering aura, Hansu remembered that Professor Jia Yan was one of the toughest teachers in the magic department. He had heard that Jia Yan's exams were no joke, enough to terrify even the geniuses of the academy. This would be interesting. Professor Jia Yan set down his materials and told the class to settle down since the second semester was about to begin. He said he'd seen many outstanding students here, yet some hadn't changed at all. Hansu thought to himself that now the professor would start praising all the main characters of the semester, and that the semester rating would rise even higher. Surviving at this academy was going to get harder for him. If a few more main characters appeared this semester, he was doomed. Edel Academy only trained students from 4 to 19 years old who had strong potential, high mana, or came from remarkable bloodlines. Only 10% ever graduated, which made their graduates extremely valuable even outside the country. As for Hans, in the story he survived only because his potential skyrocketed after clashing with black magicians, but now he wondered how he would ever face these main characters. The professor continued, saying that he still saw 1 or 2 pieces of trash in this semester who had no qualification to study with these children.
Hansu flinched, wondering why the hell the professor was glaring at him. Professor Jiayan then announced that the entrance exam was about to begin, and that before it started, he would give them a chance to choose their own subjects. At that moment, Hansu's system activated, telling him to choose 3 subjects based on his experience and pass their exams. Hansu groaned internally. The system again. He needed to select 3 subjects, but would Edel Academy even allow him to choose freely? The professor finished explaining that each subject had a limited number of seats, and selection would be randomized through a box. Every student's name had been written on a paper and placed inside, and as he drew names, those students would get the chance to choose their subjects. "All right then," he said.
The professor announced that the selection would be completely random, and the first name he pulled was Hansav. Hearing it, our main character jolted in surprise, asking if it was really him. A screen appeared in front of him, giving him the chance to choose a course. Seeing the options like mana operation, magic spell, swordsmanship, and many others, he muttered that they were all too difficult, and he could only pick one. There was hydrology and ritual. It was the only course he felt he could finish just by studying. Students whispered amongst themselves, saying he chose hydrology. What? Hydrology? That was one of the most useless courses. They expected him to pick swordsmanship or magic ritual, but he chose complete trash. Forget it, ignore him. He wasn't competition anyway. Hansav thought hydrology required natural science and a few other subjects, which would be easy for him to handle if he just memorized properly. But then he noticed something and froze. The scene shifted to the library where Hansav was studying intensely. He explained that in his previous life, he had been a pediatric surgeon and had studied science thoroughly, so natural science would be easy for him to handle. Ritual courses use mathematical and normal formulas that he dealt with in his daily life, so even that wouldn't be hard. The last part was monster anatomy, where he had to study monster behavior, and that didn't seem boring either. Suddenly, his bag began to shake as the red dragon tried to come out. Hansav panicked, saying it couldn't come out now since so many people were watching them. He needed to leave first. Grabbing his backpack, he slipped out. The scene shifted to the underground dungeon where he explained that this was Edel Academy's personal training area, a place where students could train safely underground. An instructor stood at the entrance asking for his pass. Hansav handed it over, saying he was still a beginner practitioner and that his beast would be entering too. The instructor checked the pass and asked the name of his beast. Hansav froze. What was his beast's name? His black dragon reacted as if saying he wouldn't have a name until Hansav gave him one. Hansav muttered that since the dragon belonged to a reptilian species, maybe his scientific name should be Drago Reptilian. Did he like it? The dragon raised his claws furiously, threatening to claw him to pieces if he dared name him that. Hansav realized it wasn't a good name at all, so he decided to call him Red Dragon from now on. The dragon smiled in approval. The instructor granted them entry, saying she had registered both their names. Only 2 could enter a dungeon at a time, and someone else was already inside. She also said he might want to pick a weapon, since there could be monsters. He browsed through the weapons, chose one, and headed into the dungeon. The scene shifted to the dungeon entrance, glowing brightly, as Hansav thought this would be his first real dangerous adventure. It might actually be fun. Entering, he marveled at how different the place looked. Was this a monster forest? He spotted several cute-looking slimes nearby. Were these the monsters they had to fight? But as he watched the slimes doing something strange, he was shocked, and even the black dragon reacted. Moments later, the little dragon began slaughtering all the slimes with brutal intensity. Hansav narrated in awe as the scene unfolded.
Our little dragon had awakened a new ability. Its name was Insentient Activity, allowing him to sense large numbers of monsters in advance. Well, whatever. Our little dragon was training really well. So now it was Hansu's turn. As he moved a bit farther in, a swarm of slime monsters suddenly attacked him. Startled, he quickly pulled out his shield to block them, shouting what the hell this was. There were so many slimes, far more than he expected. Then his red dragon swooped in. Seeing him, Hansu sighed with relief, saying he at least had a friend who could help him. He called out to the little dragon, telling him it was his turn. Show them what your flamethrower can do. The red dragon unleashed a blazing torrent, burning all the slimes into ash. Watching it, Hansu cheered, amazed at how the dragon had wiped out all the slime monsters at once. It was truly impressive. Half a day later, Hansu and the red dragon were exhausted. They complained that using so much energy had drained them completely. These general monsters never seemed to end. Still, the good thing was that the little dragon understood human language and even his emotions. Once they got out, Hansu promised he would feed him something really tasty. But then a shout echoed through the dungeon. Someone yelled in frustration, asking why things weren't working, and ordering someone to catch the slime monsters properly. Stop playing around, attack them. Why weren't they doing anything? Hearing this, Hansu realized she was trying to tame her hellhound, but clearly had no idea how. The hellhound ran straight toward the forest. She screamed for it to come back, shouting that she told it to sit, wondering where it had run off to. If she caught it, she would teach it a proper lesson. As she searched, she heard another voice deeper in the forest, praising someone. Yes, that's a sign of a good child. You're doing well. She hurried toward the sound and froze when she saw Hansu calmly petting the hellhound. That's Hansu, the Semester 2 guy. Hansu gently stroked the hellhound, saying it had done a great job. Then he turned to the girl and said he didn't think she knew how to tame her beast properly. She stared in disbelief. What was she seeing? This guy used to be furious all the time. Whenever a beast came near him, he would lose his temper. She had always been one of the top students in her class, ranking 3rd. But being an orphan meant no novel chose her, and the random box went too far. She ended up with the useless taming survey, where her skills were severely lacking. After tons of practice, she managed to catch one hellhound, but she knew Hansu well. In Semester 1, he couldn't even tame a tiny slime. How was he able to do this now? How could he tame her hellhound so easily when even she couldn't? Approaching him, she asked, "How are you doing all this?" Hansu simply replied that this was actually very easy.
He explained that she just needed to relax her hand and gently stroke the hellhound's forehead. She could do it too. Just try it once. The moment she placed her hand on the dog and petted it, the hellhound immediately sat beside her. Shocked, she thanked him for teaching her so much. Hansu laughed softly, saying it wasn't a big deal. Taming monsters was incredibly difficult anyway. But inside, she was reeling. What was happening? She expected nonsense from him, yet he was speaking so kindly, calmly, like a proper tamer. Everything she thought she knew about him was wrong. He had changed far more than she imagined. It felt unreal. After a bit more time together, she admitted he had given her plenty of information about beasts. She would apply all of it to her own partner. With that, she took her hellhound deeper into the forest. She soon found a cluster of slime monsters and declared it was training time for her hound. Drawing her shotgun, she launched a fierce attack. The slimes swarmed toward her, and she blasted them one after another until the ground itself looked like it had been gouged out. Hansu watched from a distance, muttering that this was a bit too rough. When she glared back at him, he shrugged and said she had practically buried the slimes alive. She clicked her tongue full of attitude, saying, "So what? That was exactly how she wanted to bury every slime monster. It was her specialty." Then, a slime monster attacked her from behind. Hansu warned her with an "oh no" before blasting it with magic. He reminded her to watch her back. She snapped at him not to teach her, claiming she already knew the monster was there. Hansu said fine, if she knew, then she didn't need him at all, and he would leave. But inside, she panicked. In truth, she had no idea slimes could attack from behind. But Hansu's magic arrow ability wasn't something a beginner-rank student should possess. Who was this guy, really? Suddenly, the atmosphere around them changed completely. Hansu looked around in shock, asking if dungeons always had traps like this. She admitted she had no idea, since this was her first time here too.
At that moment, an emergency alert echoed inside the principal's office. A device blared warnings about the beginner dungeon, and the principal stood up, asking what was wrong with the dungeon's spell system. Who is even using the beginner dungeon right now? An instructor answered that it was Eldora from the second semester, along with Hansu. The principal frowned. Eldora might survive for a while, but Hansu, he didn't have the potential or ability to handle a dangerous monster. Still, he ordered a rescue team to prepare immediately. In the next scene, the principal was explaining the entire dungeon situation to two instructors. The scene cut back to the dungeon, where Hansu and Eldora were fighting non-stop against relentless slime-like monsters. Eldora was already frustrated, shouting that these crazy slimes never stopped coming. It felt like she was trapped in hell, endlessly firing her shots while the monsters kept regenerating. When would these slime monsters stop appearing? Hearing this, Hansu thought silently to himself.
She still wasn't tired, spinning her shotgun again and again. Her basic beast-taming ability was decent, but her earth magic was at an advanced level. Watching her, Hansu felt reminded of someone. Yes, the great mage wizard, the earth magic specialist, Lady Adlia. Then he shook his head. No, he was overthinking again. A great earth magician like Lady Wizard wouldn't have such basic taming skills. Her shotgun technique was good, sure, but their semester had plenty of powerful students who could stand on equal ground with the main character. Her earth magic was impressive, but still considered common within the academy. Meanwhile, the girl looked at him and wondered why he was zoning out so much. He was acting creepy. He told her it wasn't like that. He was just calculating the time. Didn't she think about how they had been in this dungeon for nearly 3 hours, and yet no rescue team had come? She looked at him surprised he didn't know. Time flowed differently in dungeons. 1 hour inside was only 30 or 20 minutes outside. Hansu cursed himself for forgetting. Then the rescue team would be extremely late. They'd take at least 2 or 3 hours to arrive, and by then both of them would be overwhelmed by these slime monsters. What should he do now? Suddenly the girl gasped, asking where he was going. Did he think she was unlucky? Was he planning to leave her here to die while he escaped? Hansu insisted that wasn't it. She was strong enough to hold off the monsters for a while. She just needed to buy him some time. He would return quickly to save her. With that, he sprinted back toward the forest. The girl shouted after him, angry that he would leave a girl surrounded by this many slimes. Hansu was ignoring her now. He was such a terrible guy, she thought. Nobles didn't care about commoners at all. If she died here, it wouldn't matter to anyone. Meanwhile, the little red dragon stared at Hansu, and Hansu sighed, saying he understood. He would go back to save her. He already had a plan. The scene shifted. Some time later, Hansu had reached a deeper part of the forest and grabbed a handful of branches. He remembered clearly how he used to be bullied here, unable to use his magic. These branches had helped him back then. If they formed a circle with these branches, it could protect them. Magic didn't affect the branches at all. Sometimes he felt the author had thrown in a cheat code. At least he could use it now. Gathering as many branches as he could, he hurried back to save his partner. The next scene returned to the girl who was desperately fighting off the monsters and gasping that even her hands had stopped moving.
Hansu called out that it was done and she could come over now. Hearing him, the girl approached and demanded to know what he had built. A barricade? Did he really think slime monsters wouldn't melt it? Hansu told her to just get inside and leave the rest to him. Then he explained his full idea. He would use magic fire, amplify it with his mana, and release it throughout the forest so all the slime monsters would die in a single strike. He began shaping a magical arrow, enlarging it as he told his dragon it was his turn. The little black dragon infused the arrow with its fire ability until both of their eyes shone and the arrow blazed brighter than before. Hansu thought to himself that he couldn't control this magic for long, so he had to fire now.
He released it, and a massive explosion lit up the sky with beautiful flames. The girl shielded herself from the shockwave. Hansu assured her they were perfectly safe here, while every slime monster in the forest would burn away. Slimes were made of poison, and poison reacted instantly to fire, causing them to decompose completely. She admitted he had burned down the entire forest and saved them from the slimes, but the fire could also reach them. Did he even plan for that? Hansu replied that she didn't need to worry. They were safe enough here. Inside, she was stunned. Hansu, the boy she always thought was the academy's biggest trash, had just saved her life. He was the only one in this entire academy who seemed to care about a commoner. She still couldn't believe he was actually this good. Hansu noticed her staring and asked what was wrong. Was she trying to thank him? Pouting, she said she could thank him since he saved her life. Hansu told her there was no need. Instead, she could return the favor someday. What favor? What kind? He said just something she could actually manage. She panicked, asking if he was planning to propose to her, warning that she wasn't ready for any kind of relationship and didn't want to hurt his feelings. Hansu quickly clarified that all he wanted was for her to keep everything that happened a secret. She was stunned. He repeated it, like how he helped her tame her hellhound and saved her from this slime-infested dungeon. She shouldn't tell anyone. She mentally slapped herself. She had misunderstood everything. This guy was entirely different from what she thought. Meanwhile, Hansu collected the cores of all the dead slime monsters and buried them in a hole. Soon the professors came rushing in, asking if the kids were safe. The dungeon had gone completely out of control and started spawning high-level monsters. But looking around, the area seemed perfectly calm. They assumed Eldira had handled everything. As long as both students were safe, that was enough. They told them that since they had cleared the dungeon, the dean would personally give them a prize in his office. The scene shifted to Hansu, lounging on a luxurious sofa outside the dean's office. He sighed, amazed at how comfortable it was and how quickly it eased his exhaustion. If he had an appraisal skill, he thought he would die from admiring the academy's furniture alone. Meanwhile, his little dragon had leveled up again, so he checked its stats. Its intelligence had increased a lot, its level was higher, and now it was immune to poison. But one thing still bothered him. Why had the dark magicians kept the little dragon in that basement? That place was horrible, and there were no monsters around for leveling. Maybe they planned something with him. But by luck, the dragon ended up with him, and now it was his responsibility to raise him properly. He asked the little dragon if he wanted to get even stronger. If so, he could eat the slime core crystals. They were delicious and would multiply his strength. The little dragon made a disgusted face, asking if he really had to eat that. Hansu hyped it up, saying it was extremely tasty and he should try it. The dragon reluctantly ate one and immediately felt a strange jolt, then ran aside to vomit, complaining how awful it was. Hansu thought, yes, the taste was terrible, but 2 of the dragon's stats had increased, poison resistance and strength. The little dragon seemed to realize it too. Then he suddenly turned and stared intensely at the bag.
Inside the bag lay a huge pile of core crystals. The little dragon stared at them, looking disappointed for a moment, then suddenly pounced and began devouring them all. Watching him eat, Hansu said he was still getting non-stop notifications. The dragon's stats were rising at an incredible speed, and it amused him deeply. If only his own status increased that fast, that would be amazing. Just then, Edelra arrived, complaining that she felt awful, like she had stolen someone else's reward. Hansu turned toward her and muttered, "Short hair." The girl was talking the same way as before. Wasn't she that girl from the dungeon? Edelra stomped closer, saying Hansu had no idea how hard it had been for her to handle that situation. She had told the dean everything, and he praised her non-stop and even gave her an item as a reward. Hansu said he didn't care and she could keep the item. He was leaving. Edelra stiffened, thinking he was trying to show pity toward her. If that was the case, he could stay far away. Even if she was a commoner, she still had her pride. Hansu quickly clarified that she had misunderstood. She approached him asking what he meant by wrong. Hansu admitted he didn't really know her. She insisted he must know her, then introduced herself as Edelra. Hansu froze, feeling a jolt through his whole body. Edelra Selamona, the great wizard who, in the novel, would help bury him alive with the main character, and he had been carrying that fate with him all along. Edelra grinned, asking if he truly didn't recognize her. Hansu hurried away, thinking he hadn't even realized he was carrying his own grave right beside him. If he stayed near her any longer, he was definitely going to die. Behind him, Edelra shouted, asking where he was going. Fine, she had accepted he wasn't pitying her. Now she wanted to show him the gift the dean had given her, a mirror. She told him to come look at his own face, insisting he looked quite cute in the reflection. Hansu glanced at the mirror and sighed at how terrible he looked. His hair was too long. Maybe that was why no one liked him at the academy, combined with the dark energy that used to leak from him. He decided the first thing he needed was a haircut. The scene shifted to the next day. Hansu arrived at the academy with his new hairstyle, and everyone around whispered that he looked really cool now. Before, he wasn't attractive at all and smelled awful, but now he looked handsome and sharp. Hearing all the praise made Hansu extremely happy. But then someone approached. It was Karnal. He mocked Hansu's haircut, saying a donkey remains a donkey no matter how much it trimmed its hair, and he also demanded his monthly payment. Hansu remembered. Karnal was a commoner who used to bully him, and Hansu had hired him as a bodyguard when he was at his weakest. Karnal took plenty of money every month, but never did any work. Karnal said he knew Hansu had been beaten up by slime monsters in the dungeon, so he shouldn't pretend he had forgotten their agreement. Hansu opened his bag, asking what money he even wanted, then placed his little dragon in front of him. Seeing the dragon, Karnal recoiled in fear as the classmates whispered, "How did a regular student have a dragon? How did he even get one?" Karnal tried to act tough, accusing Hansu of trying to scare him. Hansu's family had disowned him. He barely had money for himself, so how could he raise a dragon? Hansu smirked, asking if a stupid commoner was really trying to teach a noble how to raise a dragon. Enraged, he shouted at him to watch his mouth. Hansu teased him further, thinking how easy it was to provoke him. Then he offered Karnal a chance, telling him to try taming the dragon and pet it if he dared. Karnal exploded, calling Hansu disgusting and swearing he had crossed the line. He would take revenge. Hansu told him not to go so far. They could settle this right away. He reminded Karnal that the semester exams were coming. They should bet on who would get the higher rank. Karnal agreed. Whoever lost the bet would crawl around barking like a dog, and everyone would call him a mutt.
But in my old world, I was known as the crazy dog. Everyone called me a mad hound because of the way I worked, and no one could ever keep up with me. A group of nobles shouted from behind, saying they'd heard about his bet and found it hilarious. His status was rising a bit too much. If luck stayed with him, he might survive, but if not, he'd be barking like a dog soon enough. Hearing all this, Hansu thought to himself that if he wanted to be successful, he had to fix his reputation. If everyone kept calling him a dog, how would he ever rise? He turned and asked one of them what his name was. The boy flinched, surprised Hansu was addressing him, then stepped forward arrogantly. What was Hansu going to do? He belonged to a royal family, and his name was Eden Batsman. Had Hansu never heard of him? Hansu had. He knew Eden was indeed from a royal lineage, but was also one of the biggest cowards in the novel, weak and terrified of everything. Hansu opened his bag and pulled out the little dragon, asking for help teaching them a lesson. Eden recoiled in fear, asking why he had summoned the dragon. Hansu sent the dragon toward them, telling it to let them taste what becoming a dog felt like. Their screams echoed through the halls. The scene shifted to the training area, where Hansu trained with Edelra. He admitted it was incredibly difficult. Edelra watched him secretly, thinking Hansu had been acting extremely wild these days.
He had injured 2 royal students using his red dragon, and the royal family was furious. But she trusted that Hansu always had a plan. He would escape trouble somehow. She extended her hand, saying she could rely on her help too. Hansu replied she was doing well. Just as he had helped her become better at taming beasts, she now helped him master magic. Edelra launched herself upward with earth magic and struck at him again. Days passed in this intense training until the semester exam arrived. Edelra entered with her hellhound, thanking the professor warmly. She said the exam had been amazing, and she wouldn't have cleared it so easily without her hellhound. Watching this, Hansu thought she had grown so much and treated her beast with real care now. Then the instructor called Hansu's name. Hansu stepped forward, saying, "Yes, Professor?" He stood before the exam cube and explained that each cube held different monsters and they had to defeat everything inside. He had chosen a C-rank cube. Now he had to see what monster appeared. Inside the cube, a massive snake-type creature materialized and shot straight toward Hansu. Feeling the energy it released, Hansu murmured, "This aura is extremely dangerous. It wasn't Bao Than, the legendary crate serpent, but it was close. Still, there was no need to panic."
Bao Than had been dead for ages. This was only its virtual image. Adel Academy created virtual copies of powerful monsters for student training. Hansu told his real dragon not to be afraid. It wasn't that dangerous, and they could defeat it. Hearing this, the little dragon trusted him completely. When the massive snake lunged forward, Hansu shouted for the dragon to hurry, attack from its blind spot, and strike its eyes. Meanwhile, he himself would draw the monster's attention. The dragon darted toward the serpent's head with incredible speed and unleashed a vicious blast of energy right into its face. Both its eyes burst, blood streaming down as the creature thrashed violently before collapsing into a heap. The dragon returned to Hansu's side proudly. Even the professor was shocked. A second-semester student had just defeated a high-ranked monster? Even third-semester students trembled before such monsters, afraid of their aura alone. Hansu petted his dragon, noticing the system cube still hadn't removed the monster's body. But that wasn't his problem. He looked at his professor and said, at least he would pass this semester now. The professor wrote in a report that Hansu had defeated a high-ranked monster in just 12 minutes and 36 seconds, placing him in the S-rank category. Hearing this, Hansu broke into a sweat. Was that monster actually real? The next episode began at Arnold Academy. Edeldro walked behind Hansu excitedly, saying he was incredible for passing a timing course at S-rank. He had even dueled well against her. It seemed he had mastered every subject now. Their practice duel had been wild, and she felt he would dominate every class. Hansu laughed awkwardly, thinking that he only needed to stay around rank 15. If he scored too high, Cornell would force him to bark like a dog and humiliate him. And seriously, who used real monsters in a taming exam? Baby or not, it had been dangerously strong. Edeldro winked at him, asking how his math exam went. Math? He internally scoffed. Math was super easy for him. He could have solved everything, but to avoid suspicion, he had left 2 questions blank and intentionally answered a few wrong. Out loud, he just said it was fine. Edeldra groaned, saying the exam had been mind-breaking. How could anyone solve all the questions? She had skipped many, and one question was impossibly hard. Hansu thought to himself that Edeldra must be weak in math. Maybe he should tutor her. But then she said she solved everything except question 27 because it was too difficult. Hansu froze. These main characters were always insanely intelligent. How was he supposed to keep up? As he walked away, she shouted after him. She was still talking, wondering if her first rank would remain secure and whether she'd keep her scholarship. Then she asked what he wrote for question 27. Hansu casually replied he solved it. Edeldra stopped in disbelief. No one in their entire semester had solved question 27. Hansu turned back in shock, but it was just a geometry and vector problem. It had been easy for him. The scene shifted to the professor's office, where a staff member reported that only one student had solved question 27. The vector instructor was thrilled. A second-year student solving such a problem meant the academy truly had gifted students. They asked for the name. The instructor said it was Hanso. She had checked his questions. His method was strange, but the answers were correct. She had even noticed he deliberately left 2 easy questions unanswered. Professor Vector laughed, remembering Hanso from the taming exam, saying they definitely needed to keep a close eye on him from now on.
The scene shifted to the Semester 2 ranking exam where Hansu checked the results. Karnal was rank 32. Good. Then he looked for his own rank. 11? He had planned to stay around 15, but now it was time to meet Karnal. Karnal, staring at the results in shock, tried to run away, but Hansu walked straight toward him and said to follow. Behind them, the whole semester whispered excitedly. Hansu won! Holy crap, it actually happened! Karnal lost! Would he bark like a dog in front of the entire class? Hansu looked at Karnal and said the whole semester was praising him. Then he asked a question. What is 1 plus 100? Karnal wondered why this bastard was asking him something like that, then nervously muttered that it was 2. Hansu immediately said he had failed math and tanked his rank. Thinking to himself, Hansu realized Karnal got angry too easily. If he forced him to bark like a dog, the idiot would probably spend his whole life trying to bite him. Better to spare him. Hansu said he needed to talk. If he humiliated Karnal in front of everyone, it would destroy him. He didn't want that, so he told Karnal to come to the basement tomorrow. In the basement, Karnal snapped, demanding why he'd been called. Hansu replied with full attitude, telling him to lower his tone unless he wanted to bark in front of the entire class. When Karnal finally calmed down, Hansu asked if he knew who his father was. Shocked, he remembered the Count, the creator of the Edel Empire, known as the Blood Hunting Dog, the man who wiped out the black magicians in the Mage War. Why was Hansu bringing up someone like that? Hansu said he didn't want much, only that Karnal was good at spreading rumors. He had one rumor for him to unleash. He whispered it into Karnal's ear, leaving him stunned. The guy was completely insane. The scene shifted to a noble villa where someone rushed in with news from Edel Academy. The Blood Count asked what ridiculous news the butler had now about his son. The butler explained the young master had changed, was well-liked, was behaving kindly, studying hard and training properly. The Count dismissed it, saying the butler must be confusing him with someone else. His son was pathetic, disliked by all, and hardly sane. That is why he had cut off his living expenses long ago, paying only the academy fee. But the butler insisted it was true. Hansu had ranked 11th this semester. The Count froze. Was the information confirmed? His reputation had actually changed? The butler bowed and promised to verify everything. The Count thought privately that he never believed his son would change. After seeing him attempt the black magic ritual years ago, he had become strict and harsh to make him strong. But if Hansu truly had changed, then, as his only heir to the Kasich estate, he would support him if he entered the magic department. The scene shifted back to Edel Academy, where Hansu admired his wallet stuffed with money. He even received a scholar's grant. He would be rich soon. All his hard work and the rumor strategy had paid off brilliantly. Karnal approached, asking why he was standing there instead of going to the auditorium for the advancement ceremony. Hansu said he was coming. They were told about the second-year advancement trial. Depending on their magical proficiency and natural ability, they would be assigned to different departments: natural department, astrology, necromancy, or others. On stage, the dean congratulated the second years as the ceremony began. A magical device would examine their inner skills and assign their department. Hansu thought about the novel. Originally, Hansu entered the necromancy department, and if he didn't perform well or didn't learn black magic, he would be hunted down. But if he did learn it, the main characters would eventually kill him. The device activated, and the dean called students one by one. First was Lee. Students whispered about his brilliant aura. Hansu recognized him as the story's main character, destined for the magic department. And indeed, he was assigned to magic. Next was Solia, another genius who always stayed by the main character's side. She too received the magic department. More students went up: necromancy, astrology, various departments, each one a key ally who would later help destroy him.
Finally, Hansu's name was called. Walking toward the stage, he trembled inside. In just 3 years, black magicians would attack this academy and he would die. If he ended up in necromancy, it was over. Please, not necromancy. The dean watched him approach, thinking he had heard quite a lot lately about Hansu's improvement, his polite behavior, and even topping several exams.
The dean had assumed Hansu would enter the necromancy department since he had practiced dark magic before, but the moment the dice glowed, the dean's eyes widened in disbelief. This kid was a magician. Hansu lit up with relief as he stepped down from the stage. The crowd erupted in confused whispers. What was going on? The dice had to be broken. They had sensed dark magic from him before. He should have gone straight into necromancy. How had he landed in the magic department? Carline rushed over, congratulating him happily for joining the magic department. She was in it too and told him to take good care of her. They chatted as she stood close to him, her adorable face making Hansu blush. If she stayed near him any longer, he would end up falling for her. He needed distance. Carline stared at him, confused by his sudden awkwardness, then stepped even closer. Hansu insisted nothing was wrong. She admitted she thought he would end up in necromancy and that they would be separated, but now that he was here, he had to teach her everything he knew. Someone called his name. Hansu turned to see E approaching. Why was the main character coming to him? E said he was genuinely surprised Hansu had joined the magic department. Now they would be working together. Hansu felt something strange. E was acting differently than in the novel. Then E asked if Hansu was feeling better after being trapped in the air dungeon during the practical exam. The rumors said Edelra had saved him in a dramatic rescue. E was even curious about Hansu's magic type. Hansu stared at him shocked. Not even outside professors knew about the air dungeon incident. Only a few instructors knew. So how did the main character know? The scene shifted to the new dormitory building where students were checking their room numbers. Hansu found room 203 and entered, only to be greeted by someone saying his name. Hansu didn't know the guy at all, yet the boy recognized him right away. The boy cheerfully said he was Hansu's roommate and that Hansu had practically made a noble cry during the advancement ceremony. His rumor was everywhere. A flashback showed a royal screaming. Earlier, he'd been placed in the necromancy department when he wanted magic. He begged another student to switch with him. Watching this, Hansu smiled coldly and told them he didn't have the qualifications for the magic department. The only reason he survived at Edelra Academy was his royal blood. The boy trembled, asking how Hansu knew all that. Hansu rubbed his forehead, complaining that people these days are exhausting. The royal boy broke down, wondering if he truly wasn't worthy of the magic department. Hansu told him not to cry in public, or the shredded remains of his reputation would drag Hansu down with it. He hadn't expected their introduction to happen this way. The boy introduced himself as Brownie. Hansu recognized the name instantly. Brownie would become one of the main character's closest friends, with strong connections in every city and village he visited. Why were all these important characters gathering around him? If this kept happening, eventually E would kill him without hesitation. Brownie eagerly asked Hansu if he wanted to go explore. He had a guidebook with all the useful locations. What did Hansu want to eat? They headed to the cafeteria, where Brownie explained each meal was measured precisely. He hated the overly nutritious food and preferred outside meals. Then they moved to the outdoor magic practice field, where Brownie warned him not to use too strong a spell because the barrier was weak. There was also an indoor practice area with a much stronger barrier where they could cast freely. They toured the grounds until Brownie pointed out how to reach their classrooms from the dorms. Suddenly, a strange fog swept across the entire academy. Students murmured nervously. A black cloud? Maybe it was about to rain. Brownie agreed they needed to hurry back to their dorms before heavy rain trapped them outside.
Hansu grabbed Brownie's arm, stopping him. Brownie turned, confused, asking why he wasn't moving. Hansu said the fog was getting too heavy, too dangerous. Inside, he already knew what this atmosphere meant. It was poison rain, infused with black magic. Students shouted from the dorm windows not to go outside. 2 students had already vanished. Then the system appeared, announcing that the second main episode was beginning, the one where several students would mysteriously disappear.
The scene shifted to the forest. Beneath the colossal tree, students were tied down by thick roots. Elra shouted in frustration, asking why this always happened to her. Elena told her not to exhaust herself. None of them could break the tree's trunk. Carol snapped at her, asking how she could say something so useless. Elena insisted she was stuck here too, and was searching for a weakness in the tree. Elra said she hadn't even realized what happened. A black magician appeared, summoned them, and the roots trapped them instantly. There hadn't been time to react. Someone was probably coming to make sure they didn't escape. Elra admitted she came from a noble family with strong connections, unlike herself. She thought back to the air dungeon, how Hansu had handled everything, but now she wondered if all those coincidences had been traps to lure her into this dungeon. Hansu was probably sleeping peacefully in the dorm, completely unaware of her miserable situation. Elena glanced at her and repeated that wasting strength wouldn't help. She had a theory. Every holy tree carries divine energy. If they used even a little holy power, maybe they could break free. Elra thought privately this was impossible. Who could summon so much holy power now? Carol asked if she had even tried. Did the tree absorb her holy power? Elena admitted she didn't know, but the toxic rain had disrupted everyone's holy light, except hers. She alone had purification of earth, though she couldn't use too much. Even so, she had to try. She activated her earth blessing, green light spreading over the branches. Carol gasped. Was her holy light really working? Then a voice came from behind, telling them their efforts were pointless. In the next instant, the tree roots absorbed Elena's holy power violently, and she fell into a mental haze as the black magician whispered to her. He mocked her, saying her family had already fallen and she was their last desperate hope. She had struggled her entire life, but nothing she did would revive her family. He offered her a deal. Garland shouted for her not to listen. He was trying to manipulate her, controlling them all from within the tree. Elena was slipping under his influence, her aura corrupting. If Garland didn't distract him, Elena might not survive. She taunted him loudly, calling him a coward who hid behind a tree and bullied academy students because he lacked the courage to face anyone directly. Enraged, the black magician attacked her with dark magic. Garland froze in terror. Suddenly, a massive white magic blast tore through the roots, freeing them all. Brownie rushed in, catching the collapsing Elena and asking if she was all right. Hansu stepped out from behind him, saying his creation had worked perfectly. Garland asked why he was here and what was happening. Hansu helped her up, telling her not to fire questions all at once. Someone had been about to die back there. Brownie explained they had used light magic, amplified through a giant magnifying lens, which caused the explosion. Hansu asked Elena again if she was okay. She said she was fine and demanded to know why he kept asking. He nodded and said that was great. Then he pulled out a sword and told her to fight with it. Garland lit up instantly at the sight of the weapon. And with that, the episode came to a close. We'll return soon with the next chapter. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Until then, sayonara.
The story begins with an old man introducing himself while writing with a pen. Shaltiar von the Krems, Chancellor of the Annex Empire. Krems explains that he is the loyal servant who placed the pleasure of serving the master above the glory of becoming the vampire king. He says that he is leaving this record to write the limitless achievements of his master. The story began on the day when the sky was bursting with purple lightning, and amidst the same glow, a man descended from another world. As soon as that man comes to this world, he crushes the Annex continent. Everyone cheers in the name of the Emperor of the Annex continent and celebrates his victory. Chancellor Krems goes to his master and says that all dimensions are now in his steps. But Emperor says in a low voice that in the end, no one knew anything about his homeland. Krems looks at him and does not understand what kind of sadness is inside the master. Kremsley continues the narration. This man is his master who conquered the entire continent in just 50 years. Kremsley explains that his master has so much power that just by thinking, he controls millions of the dead. And his sword rips through the mountains. It even divides the Sis. He is the immortal emperor of the Annex Empire, the king of both the living and the dead. Kremsley writes that countless people bow to his power, and whoever challenges him swears eternal loyalty to him as the undead. The drags who put the continent in terror, Demon King, archdukes with the demon world, heavenly demon of the martial arts world, even the spirit king of the world tree has all fallen in front of him. All the dimensions related to the Annex are under his control. But what does Kremsley think his master wants? And the answer is simple. He wants to go back. But even after every dimension, the path is not found. Finally, he calls the sub-vessels from his throne and says that he is now tired and now he wants a long sleep. Followers are in shock, and someone asks, what does it mean? A skeletal lich says they will continue the search for the master. But Emperor says there's no point in returning now. 300 years have passed. His family, his friends are all dead, and it's too late. He gives a new commandment that everyone should now find a way to his eternal rest. The sounds of crying echo in the palace, but the order doesn't change. On Emperor's orders, the senior liches create a giant disintegration magic circle that can devour everything. Emperor looks at him and says that maybe now he will be able to see everyone again. He alone moves towards that disintegration magic circle. Krems runs to the back, calls out to him, and says that he will serve him even in death. As soon as the Emperor steps into the magic circle, the disintegration magic is activated. Behind Emperor, Kremsley also steps into the magic circle, and bright lights flash. All seems to be over. There is a sound in the present as to why the lights are off, which starts the crams. Emperor is now in its body of meaning. The name is Kang Jan, and she has a baby girl in her arms. He scolds Kremsley as to why he keeps the lights off when he is at home.